Hey everybody, it's Kay, and it's been a minute since I've done a video. So what I'm going to do is, and I'm going to knock out several things at once. I'm going to tell you what I read for May, review a couple of books, and do a very quick book haul. So I'm just going to read through the list of books that I read and then share more details on a couple of them, or a few of them for you. No Time for Goodbye by Linwood Barclay. Far From True by Linwood Barclay, The Color of Secrets by Lindsay Ashford, The Last Mile by David Baldacci, Before We Visit the Goddess by Chitra Banerjee Divakaruni, The Wedding Dress by Rachel Hawke, and The Guest Room by Chris Bajalian. Those are the books that I read in the month of May. And I will tell you that I fell into a reading slump for a while after I read the Book of Harlan and Americana. Nothing was sticking with me after that. I must have checked out, no exaggeration, I must have checked out 20 books from the library and 20 audiobooks, and I didn't like any of them. I took them all back, and it took me, I had to just, say to myself, go back to your old standards, the ones that you always, fall back on. And that was Baldacci and Barclay. So in No Time for Goodbye, I did enjoy that book. It wasn't my favorite Barclay book. Far From True, this is part 2 in his Promise Fall series. Most of the time I would recommend, it's a standalone, it's a thriller, you can pick it up, read it, you don't need to read the first one. But I do highly suggest that you go back and read Broken Promise if you're going to read Far From True. The Last Mile by David Baldacci is part 2 of his Amos Decker series. The first book is Memory Man. I suggest that you go back and read Memory Man before you read The Last Mile. The Last Mile is about Amos Decker, a former football player who was injured on the field. He now has the uncanny ability to remember everything, which is both a blessing and a curse to him. He now works with the FBI and a team of people to help solve cold cases. In this case, he is working on the exoneration from prison of a man named Melvin Mars. Melvin had been accused of murdering his parents 20 years ago, but a man in another prison in another state has confessed to the crime. So Amos and his team, along with Melvin Mars, are trying to find out who killed Melvin's parents 20 years ago, and what is the connection to the man in the other prison to his parents, and why did that man kill his parents. So I suggest that you read Memory Man first and then The Last Mile. I will tell you this, I tried reading Memory Man, I couldn't get through it. Listening to it on audio, it was so much better for me, and I listened to The Last Mile on audio too. Before We Visit the Goddess by Chitra Banerjee Divakaruni, sorry if I messed up her name. This was a very good story. It was about 3 generations of women. We start off in India with Savitri, and then we meet her daughter Bella, and then Bella's daughter Tara in the United States. And we learn about the dysfunction of these 3 women. They don't communicate. They have a tumultuous relationship with one another. They're so contradictory. They're strong but weak. They're outspoken, but they never say the right thing to the right person at the right time. If they had just communicated with each other, they might have saved each other a lot of heartache over the years. But I thought the story was very well written, to the point that I saw one of her books in the bookstore, Sister of My Heart, and decided to buy it, part of my book haul. I had never heard of her before, but I liked Before We Visit the Goddess, so I decided to get that book. Now, I will tell you this, I listened to that book on audio, and I wished I had read it, because on audio, I couldn't catch all of the Indian names, for one. I didn't always know who was talking, and the story is told in a series of flashbacks which are not in chronological order, so it's kind of hard to follow, for me anyway. But overall, the book was a good read. The Wedding Dress by Rachel Hawke is, it was pretty good. I gave it 3 stars in Goodreads, 2.5, 3 stars. It is about a woman named Charlotte who owns a bridal shop. She is engaged. She goes to an estate sale. She buys an old trunk, and lo and behold, there is a 100-year-old wedding dress inside. And so she embarks on a journey to find out who the original owner of the dress was. The story is also told from the perspective of Emily, who was indeed the original owner of the dress, and we learn her story, how the dress came about, and the so-called power of the dress over the years. Next, I about an hour ago in the car, I just finished listening to The Guest Room by Chris Bajalian. This story was different. I hadn't read a Chris Bajalian since Midwives, years and years ago when it first came out, and so I didn't quite know what to expect in terms of his writing. But I will tell you this, he drops the F word all throughout this book. I'm telling you. Now, I understand it because of the context of the story that he was telling, but I'll just let you know it was a little bit too much for me. Okay? But anyway, the story is about a man named Richard who throws his younger brother Philip a bachelor party to end all bachelor parties in his home. The unfortunate thing is at the end of the night, there are two dead Russian bodyguards, two strippers / prostitutes on the run, and Richard and his family and friends left in shambles. So I thought the story was pretty good. I gave it 4 stars on Goodreads. Really, it would have been 3.5, but I bump it up. So 4 stars on Goodreads. Book haul time. 40 Acres by Dwayne Alexander Smith. I read this book last year, but it's a book club selection this year. So I went ahead and bought a hardback copy. I have it on ebook, but I bought a hardback. The Wake of the Wind by J. California Cooper. I read this book years and years ago, but I love her, so when I saw it in the store, I had to grab it. If Sons Then Heirs by Lorraine Carey. So I'm looking forward to reading this. I can't even really remember what it was about, but you know. And then Glory Over Everything by Kathleen Grissom. It is the sequel to The Kitchen House, which I read a long time ago. But The Kitchen House is one of my book club selections for next year. And so I went ahead and bought the sequel so I can read it at my leisure. So that is my book wrap up, couple of book reviews, and a book haul all in one. Normally don't keep you this long, but thank you so much for hanging in with me. And I hope you have a good day wherever you are. Bye-bye.